Hello everyone. I'm just a couple of minutes early because I want to make sure all the techie stuff is actually going to work for me. So bear with me just a moment, and I'll do a quick journal flip through as well, just to make sure that everything's working. And I've had a couple of people ask about that. Okay, it looks like we are live. I don't see the comments very easily because of the angle of my phone and camera. So if I don't answer you, I'll try and look, but it means moving around. If I don't answer you, then I will afterwards. So thank you so much. I can see there's a couple of people watching, so obviously it's working. Woohoo! Okay, but before I start, first of all, I have a question. I have a fabric journal here, which I made some time ago. There's not much in it to kind of show you. I've had a couple of people ask about doing journal flip throughs. So I am going to flip through my other journal as well very quickly in a minute, just to get things started. There's not a lot in this, but what I wanted to show you was some of these pages. Some really unusual materials went into putting this together, and it's given me a whole bunch of amazing textures to work on as I go. And my question was, I was looking to put together like a little tutorial, a workshop, just showing you how I did this and how to make one for yourself. So if that is of interest, then let me know, because I haven't done anything. I did paint the front and back as well. I haven't done anything about a workshop as yet, but it is kind of in my mind, and the times when I have shown that journal, there's been a little bit of interest there. So that's just a question really. I'm just putting that out there. If you'd be interested in a little workshop, it would be a paid workshop. It'll be like a full in-depth demonstration, and give you a list of all the materials and all of the little secrets that I use to make that. But it won't be a lot. It'll just be like a single thing just to create a book. So it's not a tutorial on how to draw. So yeah, let me know in the comments if that might be of interest to you. It doesn't commit you to anything. I'd just like to know if there was any interest. So before I start as well, I'm just going to do a quick flick through of this journal. I can't talk about all of them in depth because a lot of these are from classes that I've taught, or workshops that I've filmed that are coming up. So some of it is just purely for the sake of showing you. Some of it may look familiar if you've done some of my art journaling online workshops with me. Or they might look tempting. Oh, there's an extra one there. They might look tempting to you. So I do have online workshops available. I'll drop my the link to sign up for email updates in the comments later on as well, just in case that's of interest to anyone. But as I said, I've had a couple of people ask about seeing a flip through of journals, so I figured whilst I'm here, we're only a couple of minutes in, it gives people time to catch up. I think that was a practice. And then there's another version of that later on. That's one of my absolute favourite pieces there. So loads and loads of portraits, all in different, some of them are from live sessions, so you may have seen them here. If you've missed them, Facebook doesn't store these live videos anymore, but what it does do, what I do is add them to my YouTube channel, so I'll leave a link for that as well. Yeah, there's a few that I can't say too much about. The one I just flipped over quickly that hasn't been released, but it does release this week, so you may see it come up somewhere else. And if you haven't joined the Art Soul Gathering, that's what that is, so I can tell you that. Actually, it's not a big secret. But yeah, there are some. It's quite nice for me to look back. I haven't looked through this journal for a while. I've usually got a couple on the go, so that if one has wet paint, then the other one I can work in the other one. So there's usually a couple on the go. That was my latest workshop. It's one of the pieces from my most recent workshop, Whispers at Midnight, which is available now. A couple of pages there that have been primed that I haven't used yet. There's one there with a lovely juicy background that's waiting. And I think this post actually went up today. Sometimes they're scheduled, so I don't always see them in real time. Yeah, I think that's it for that one. That's all of that. So let's go back to those pages that are primed with gesso. Let's get onto one of those. That's been primed with gesso and is ready to create on. Have I shown up with a plan? Absolutely not. This is my favourite way of working in my journal. So you're getting it raw and unplanned, exactly as I would if I just showed up on my own to the page. I've got a few supplies. I do have some watercolour paints just off to the side, which I may or may not use. I've got a couple of water soluble crayons, like my favourite colours. I lean towards pinks and blues and purples quite often. I also dragged out my Stabilo woodies, which are, they're water soluble, really lovely thick creamy pencil. I like those because you can layer over stuff and they kind of work quite well on a wet surface. I do have my acrylic palette with, well, there's not much in there at the moment, but if I want some acrylic I do have that to hand as well. So I'm really just winging it, and we'll see what happens. So join me for a little adventure. If you're playing along, it is probably better if your page has been primed, or if you're playing along in real time and you've got your journal there, then a fairly sturdy paper is usually a good idea, because I like to throw lots on there. So I think I'm going to start with some solubles. And I think we'll just wet this page a little bit just for the sake of flow. I was saying I'm going to throw lots of media down. I do apologise if I can't see any comments as we go, but if you leave any questions, I will come back to it later, and I will try to kind of talk you through what I'm doing and why, and the decisions that I'm making as I go along. So it's going to be a portrait. I already know that, because that's my kind of favourite go-to when I show up to my journal page. Just checking you can see. Everything looks okay. If I drift off the page, if I move it by mistake, sometimes I forget that I'm on camera. So if I move anything around and I disappear, then just keep sending comments until I see them, because they will show up eventually, and I'll figure that out. So let's just start. Let's see what happens. So this is super loose. This is a Neocolor 2. I think it is a jade tone. The colours always fade off these, so I can't see what colour it is, but it's wonderful. It's kind of in between blue and green. Let's just get a face shape in. And I'm feeling the way. I have been, you can tell by my dirty fingers, I have been working on other stuff this afternoon, but it was quite kind of intense. So it's nice to now just come here and be quite loose and laid back and feeling the way. I don't feel like I've warmed up, so yeah, I'm just letting it happen. And we'll see who appears and what she has to say. So that looks reasonably even to me, perhaps a little bit wide at the top there, but I'll figure that out when I wet that down. So eye line roughly halfway. I'm not going to mark that in because then I've got to spend time kind of taking that out. So I'm just going to put in a few dots which will mark the kind of outer corner and inner corner of the eyes. And obviously I'm imagining as well a sort of a centre line, but again I'm not marking that in, so we just imagine that, and we'll bring in a little mark here for a nose, which is roughly halfway between the eye line and the chin. It's very rough because the chin isn't even set in place yet. So these are just loose. You know, it could move a little bit. And obviously those are only average measurements. Not every face is the same. And sometimes they're not meant to be. Sometimes they're just wonky, or they have really big eyes or a really big mouth. And that's okay too. It's just how it's meant to be. So I'll put the lip line in, and again the lip line is, if the face is looking sort of straight at you, the lip line is roughly between the bottom of the nose and the chin. It's halfway between. So I'm just going to mark that in to give myself a little bit of a guide. Let's get some more water on there, and we'll just wash some of this in. I do have gesso on the page, but it's buckling slightly, but that will settle down as the page dries again, so I'm not worried about that. And I kind of like the idea of working quite loose and wet until things get going, and then refining it later. So then you get a really interesting sort of story that occurs. Because you can see all these lovely lines and layers underneath just very softly, and then we can kind of take away, build up where we want to, cover up where we want to. Let's put just a little curve in for each eye, and I'm starting over on the left because I'm right-handed. So if I start on the right and then I come over here, my hand blocks my view, so that's just kind of a handy tip to use. It means that now if I go to the right, I can look over here and I can get it somewhere like the same. There's no precision really at this stage. Use this, I'm really loving this colour, so we're going to go with that, and I'm going to put a little bit more pigment down just lightly to sort of hollow in the eye sockets there, and a little more towards the sides of the face as well, just to darken those shadows. We'll take some in below the neck too. No fancy brushes. This is, oh, it's had a really hard life, this one. So I think I've used it for gesso and all kinds, so it's really quite scrappy, and that's okay too, because not using a fancy brush is something else that goes towards sort of loosening you up as well. Let's just activate this so that we soften those lines while we're here, that little line there as well. Let's take a little bit of shade below the eyes as well. Okay, so as that's lovely and wet, let's bring in some watercolours as well. I have got something of a colour card which I've done, but some of these I don't know quite what they are. I do know that one of my absolute favourites, is still wet because I was using it earlier, is quinacridone magenta. I have switched brushes now. This is a slightly better brush. Again, it's only a generic brand, but I do keep watercolour and acrylic brushes separate. Just getting plenty of water in that because it's super strong, really highly pigmented, and I don't want it to kind of overwhelm. We're just going to use that over this gorgeous jade tone to deepen that shadow. Gives us a little bit of a purpley touch. Beautiful. Bit of a pink on the tip of the nose just because. Let's bring some pink just onto the cheeks as well. They don't have to match. In fact, it's better if they don't. These lovely kind of swashy loose marks are much more fun if they are kind of loose and, you know, you let them flow. So that pink of the top lip is going to flow into the shadow that I put here, which is like the philtrum, that little dip just below your nose. And then a very small amount of pigment on my brush for the lower lip, and I'm not going to touch them together. I'm just going to suggest it. can see my neck is a little wide. So I'm going to bring that in with this shadow. Oh, my iPad's doing something weird over there, asking me questions. I'll just stop that from doing that. Otherwise I can't see my broadcast. No, it's okay, it's still happening. We're good, we're good. Let's warm this up now with something else. So this is now the, again, it's Neocolor, water soluble, and this is a salmon tone. Again, I can't tell you what it's called because, so, oh, it's actually called salmon. That was a good guess. Quite often they don't have names that really work all that well. So I'm just going to bring this in. It's a little bit warmer. I kind of wanted to go towards yellow, but that's a bit too dramatic straight away. So we'll just bring in some of this, and I'm starting around the kind of outer edges of the face because the shape of it obviously is going kind of away from you. So I want it to be darker towards those outer edges. So we'll just lay that in. And I know I can lay quite a lot of this down without worrying about the paper because it has been primed. So the gesso, and it's quite a heavy duty paper anyway, but the gesso does give me that freedom to really lay down lots and lots of layers and marks before the paper will start to disintegrate. It really toughens it up. So just pulling that pigment in then from the outside edges so that it's focused around the outside. Just feels so much better once you get rid of most of the white space. Obviously, as the nose kind of dips in below the forehead there, that's a little darker. We'll leave that centre area of the forehead a bit lighter for now. I've got a line there which I'll just get rid of. I've gone back to my scrappy brush because the scrappy marks are so much more fun when you're sort of building the layers up. I can see, if I sit up really tall, which means I can't see what I'm doing on the paper, but I can see that there's a few people here watching, so thank you so much for joining me, and welcome if this is the first time that you've caught one of these live sessions. I haven't done any for, I think it's 2 months. I usually try to do this once a month, but I definitely didn't do one in July, and I think I might have missed June as well, just because of schedule. And then I won't even try and make excuses. The weather got really nice, so I was working, but I was painting outside, which doesn't lend itself so well to doing live sessions, obviously. And when those beautiful summer evenings kick in, I just want to be out there doing stuff. So I did put videos on YouTube though, so there will be some tutorials on YouTube. I didn't stop completely. I just stopped with the live sessions because it frees up my time. I'm just pondering as I'm talking whether to go in with watercolour or pencil. But I think I'm going to use, this is Derwent watercolour in deep cadmium yellow. Excuse me, clearing my throat there. And I'm just going to put a little bit of that on. I am very aware that the paper is really quite wet at the moment. And one of my biggest challenges during live sessions is to not use a hairdryer, which obviously you can do that if you're kind of playing along at your own desk, because it doesn't matter. You won't be able to hear me whittering on, but that doesn't really matter too much. You can kind of see what I'm doing, a lot of it. I'm just evening up those eyes using that yellow. Love bringing yellow tones into a portrait. It really kind of livens up the skin. I'm just redefining the bottom of the nose there. Let's put a little bit of yellow. Not worrying too much about the neck, but it is only going to come out to here. I had that just a little bit too wide. And I haven't given her ears either. That was a conscious decision, because we're going to give some hair as well, which will cover that up. But while I'm kind of around here with a light colour, this is where she really starts to tell her story. Let's just have a little bit of a guide, some irises in there. I'm not planning on them staying yellow, but the yellow is a really good kind of base colour to sketch that in. And a suggestion of eyelids as well. That's come up as a really lovely kind of heavy set eye, lovely heavy lids. Which I like. I find that's really expressive and interesting. Where it has my watercolour brush gone, put that down. Oh, there we go. Let's come in now. This is a turquoise blue. I don't know what it's called, I'm afraid. But it's just a soft turquoise. I'm going to bring that into the eyes just to kind of mark those in. They're not matching at the moment, and that's fine. They don't have to be even anyway, but I do try to get the irises looking similar, but right now that doesn't matter. We're just getting some colour in there, and then take the pigment off the brush. So this is just a wet brush. So the upper part of the eye that goes up onto the lid is darker because that's shaded, and then lower down. I've got a tissue here, but I'm just using my fingers to kind of lift the pigment off the brush. And while I've got a tiny bit of that blue on the brush, just a very, very watery version, we'll just use that to put some shadow into the actual whites of the eyes as well, because the whites of the eyes are never really white. Back into that turquoise. I'm really loving that with the jade tones. And put a little more shadow around the bottom of the nose here. Let's bring in some of that. I'm going back into my magenta now, but I haven't cleaned my brush, so there's a touch of the turquoise in there too. So we've got a kind of a mid purpley tone, and add a little bit more into the hollows of the eyes, just deepening that bit by bit. It all starts to take shape. I'm going to let that, let's get a bit more shadow under the chin actually, and then let that just rest for a minute or two and hopefully dry just a little bit. And while that's doing its thing, just have a little think about. Let's activate the pencil as well, just soften that yellow. Just have a little think about what we might do for hair. And I'm going to go back to my Neo colour. What kind of a hairstyle she's going to have. I love, when I'm working fast, just as an aside, I love that you get like little accidental spatters. I've got some, some little bits of blue that are shown up there. And all of that, for me, just tells a story on the whole thing. Still thinking about hair. Actually, I'm going to use the pink because that's going to be too difficult to kind of see otherwise against the sides of the face. Let's bring, I love when the hair goes upwards. I'm just not sure. I kind of need to give her some ears if I do that. No, we're going to bring it down. Let's start somewhere off to the side. Let's just start. All that hesitation is never a good idea. That's when things go wrong, when you overthink it. Bring that down the other side as well. It's actually covering up some of that shading that I did, but you don't know until you get there what's going to happen. And a lovely free flowing suggestion of hair happening there. Bring it in a little bit tighter to the sides of the face. Let's get that lovely scrappy brush. I'm going to stay with that magenta because I'm enjoying that. I'm a huge fan of pink. I had pink hair for many years. I think some of my old photos on here still show me with the pink hair. And I've gone purple this year, and I cannot tell you how much I'm missing the pink, so I've got a feeling that's going to be making an appearance again soon. So this is the magenta, quinacridone magenta, just straight from the palette almost. There's a little touch of turquoise probably mixed in there, but it's blending with, I think they call this purple on the Neo colour, but it's definitely a magenta. Kind of a fuchsia pink, one of my favourite shades. It's definitely a shade I think I need to have in my hair. Let's get a bit more of that into there. And you can see where I kind of drew the outline of the head, still showing through those jade tones. They will disappear, they will be covered up, but sometimes I like to leave a little hint of them there. I like that little bit of jade that's showing down here, and at the sides of the face as well. I think we'll probably bring that in and use that as shadow. So obviously the hair doesn't kind of finish here, where there's a gap towards the side of the neck that is going into the back of the hair. So I'm going to use that jade tone with some more magenta just to suggest like the shadow as the hair kind of disappears around the back of her neck. And then we'll lay some more layers on that hair as that dries. So a little bit more of that magenta. A bit more daring with the pigment now as this is all starting to come together. It really helps to start off soft. Not being precious about it. Let the lines still run and blend together. We've got pencils to use later to kind of tidy up those loose ends. Let's have a little bit more of this jade just in here in a few places to give some texture to the hair as well, so it's not a flat colour. I'll darken it around the parting there. And again, I'm just going with a scrappy brush, working fast and activating that crayon, mixing it into the magenta. If you feel like you're kind of getting too tight as you're working, rather than holding the brush just like you would a pen or a pencil, flip it over, hold it by the top and hold it towards the end, so that you've just so much less control over those strokes. Just let it happen. Little splatters and things, all part of it, especially in your art journal. I'm loving how those tones are sort of mixing together. I would like to define a little bit more of the face there, but I think I need a pencil to do it. The woodies are too thick. Let's grab another solid pencil. Okay, so that's a black. Let's go with a dark blue. I'm loath to go in with black too soon. As soon as I step away and look at the other screen, I can also see that I've lost a little bit down here. Let's just deepen that edge. That feels better. Okay, so this is a Derwent in ultramarine, and I'm going to use that to define around the eyes a little bit now. Just being careful where I put my hand, because obviously a lot of this is still quite wet. But I do avoid the dryer, as I say, on these live sessions, because one, it's noisy and I end up yelling at you over the noise, and two, watching paint dry is not not why you're here. So when lessons are pre-recorded, obviously you can pause things when you stop to dry, but don't have that luxury here. But I think that makes it all the more fun and spontaneous as well. Just using that pencil to define those lines. I could have used one of the woodies, the very chunky ones, but they are, because they're so chunky, they're just a little bit heavy-handed at this point, so they'll be coming in a little later for some mark making, just to kind of add another dimension and a little bit more interest. But that's, what did I say that was? That's an ultramarine. It's quite light for an ultramarine actually, but I quite like how soft that is. I prefer how it's actually gone onto wet paper here, so I'm going to just use, my brush is just damp, I'm just checking that with my fingers, so it's not going to soak it too much, but just soften that line a little bit. I'm definitely much darker on that left eye. Let's just deepen it over here while that's wet, that's better. Let's take a little of that ultramarine around the pupils as well and see if we can just even those out slightly. I want to go all the way around. And already there is some expression coming in there. I think that's what breathes the magic into a portrait, when they start just, it starts to tell you a story. A little bit of shadow at the bottom of the nose there, suggestion of nostrils, but less is more, especially with watercolours. And let's just redefine that lip line as well. A little dimple either side, try and get those relatively even. So I'm just lining that up with the pupil of the eye there. Those will need a little bit more tweaking as well, I think, just to get them even. So a little curve here, and then another one, just a slightly softer curve going out and meeting with that dimple. And the mouth suddenly has a little bit of shape. And give it just a touch of shadow at the bottom there. It might be a little bit heavy, but again, nothing is written in stone. It can all be tweaked and changed and refined as we go. Okay, I think I can probably put some eyebrows in now. I tend to leave those until later, because until I see what the expression is around the eyes, it's kind of hard to decide what the expression of the eyebrow is going to be, if that makes sense. So you don't want them to be too frowny or fierce, unless that's how she kind of shows up, and then they can be super frowny. But this is fairly neutral. Activate that with my damp brush, just slightly, not too much. We don't want them to spread. I quite like seeing those little pencil lines there. This is another watercolour pencil. This is Crimson Lake. Let's darken in some of this upper lip. Love the kind of uneven edges of this. So I don't want to refine it too hard. And, you know, I'm not after giving her a lip liner. Just a few marks. And if they get too solid, too refined, then adding a little bit of water will just soften that. So towards the outer corners of that lower lip, we're deepening that in with the, I forgot what it's called, Crimson Lake. It's a gorgeous colour. And just the lower part of that lip, again, my brush keeps disappearing. I'm just going to soften that so it's not too harsh of a line. So these pencils are fine, wet or dry. You don't have to activate them all the time, it's always a choice. And using it on the damp paper as well, it kind of gives a softer mark. Take that top lip just a little bit wider, because I don't think she's unhappy. It's quite a neutral expression there. Same Crimson Lake, and just get into the corners of the eyes there as well. And for the sake of expression and just adding another dimension, I'm also going to use that same red just around the eyes as well as a shade, which is, it's ever so slightly almost gothic. Sometimes when you sort of add that pinky tone around the eyes, I really love it. Activate that just to soften it, and it's slightly warmer than the magenta. It's more of a red. So it has a completely different feel to it, but it still works. It's still deep enough. It's still a pinky red enough that it works really well with the magenta. And it's really just quite a small amount of pigment. Let's dry that a little bit and just lift some of that water off. Let's get some pupils in those eyes. Those eyebrows are just a little bit off kilter. Let's fix them first. So this is, again, this is, I've used the, what was it? The ultramarine on the eyebrows, but I'm coming back now with the crayon just to soften the tone of those as well. The blue was just a bit too stark. And they look a little bit narrow. It has kind of a weird angle because of filming, so my page is very flat. So I'm not seeing things perhaps as quickly as I would if I was working on an easel. But I'm lucky enough to have, I've got a very old iPad that's spattered in paint that lives in the studio. It doesn't charge, so it has to stay plugged in. But it means that I can see the progress on the screen with a few seconds delay. So that gives me a chance to see things from a slightly different angle, which is really helpful when I'm doing these. And then you wonder how you didn't see it, but you can't see it when you're working sort of flat, but I'm also looking at it from a slightly weird angle there. Loving those yellow accents. Can we just take a moment to just appreciate those, how that yellow has just brought something really, I don't know, there's just something magical about adding cadmium yellow into portrait, into skin tones. Makes me want to add more. I've gone straight back and grab that pencil. It's my favourite yellow, cadmium. It comes out time and time again. Okay, so let's use the blue. This is the ultramarine again, and I'm going to put pupils into these eyes. I'm not going straight in with the black. I will make them black, but the blue is obviously a lot more forgiving because that can be like a really tricky thing to get even, you know, even just into the center of the eye, let alone an even size, you know, kind of a matching size. And as much as I like things to be non-symmetrical, and loose, ending up with a portrait that is staring at me with one eye looking in one direction and one eye looking in the other direction. Doesn't make me happy, so that's why I just go in with a softer tone first, and then I'm going to wet that so that when I put my black down now, that will be nice and solid. See, that one's just so much bigger than the other one. Tiny marks, but they make a big difference. Once that goes in, this would be kind of really hard to take out, and also because I can't stick my head right under the camera and get really up close and personal to this, because then all you see was the back of my head. So just letting the water make that black really black is the easiest way. Let's use that same black as a lash line as well. I'll go all the way along. Let's go to the left and just see if we can even that slightly. Kind of like a magic when that goes in, because suddenly she's looking at you, right? We're not going to draw eyelashes. This is just a lash line and a suggestion of lashes. Gently does it. Apparently I can't talk and draw eyelashes at the same time, so and breathe. That's better. And while I've got my black as well, let's just go into that lip line. It's still ever so slightly damp, so that just softens that black line quite nicely. It's not quite a paint, but it's still damp enough to just smudge it a little bit. It's a little dark. Let's just lift some of that out. This is just a damp brush and a tissue just to lift some of that black out, so it's not quite as harsh as it was. A touch of black in that shadow, but not a lot, because I don't want an outline around the whole thing. It becomes too much like a cartoon then. Just tidying up the line of the eyelids there. Okay, let's get some marks happening now with these lovely chunky things, because I'm getting way too absorbed in the finer details. I haven't used these for a while, so let's just grab a bit of paper. Sometimes they kind of almost like seal. Oh, that's nice and soft, that's fine. I'm going to add a little bit of turquoise in the eye. The fact that this is just big and chunky is it gives me a looseness which I wouldn't have if I used a tiny little pencil, because I can't quite see where it's going to land, and I love that because I think it brings a life to it, which by doing this too carefully, you don't have that. You don't have that looseness. Let's have a little bit of that turquoise just on the eyelid as well, but without using my lovely yellow, because I really like that. And because we've got turquoise happening, you know, on the face here, I'm just going to bring in a few little marks elsewhere, and we'll draw a bit of that through the hair as well, which is just about dry enough to add some textures. These woody pencils are, up until recently, I only had about 3 in my stash, and a local artist was selling a whole bunch of supplies, and I bought them from her just on a whim because I quite liked what I had, and it just makes me wish that I I was like, why haven't I had these sooner? They're so fun to use. And they are water soluble, although I'm not really using them that way this time. Let's have a little of this darker blue just in the upper part of the eye there. And again, I can't really see quite what I'm doing, so I just have to trust that the marks I make are going to land kind of where I hoped they would. I've just noticed that the nostrils need to be a little bit dark as well, so I'm just going back in with my watercolour. It's a little bit better. And it kind of looks from here, I'm just looking at the other screen as well, it looks from here like this pupil needs to just be evened off slightly. I was leaving a kind of a highlight in the pupils, but I think I'm going to add that in with some white. How gorgeous is that turquoise? It's just so... And we'll just show you how easily they activate with water as well. You can really, because that's over gesso too, it's not sinking into the paper. So you can really kind of activate that pigment as well, but they're really quite waxy and thick when they go on, far more so than the watercolour pencils. I just love those bold marks that just, it brings another texture to the hair there without really having to do very much. I'm using the blue as well to just push that shadow back a little bit more. Edge the side of that chin as it disappears up behind, and the side of the neck too. I'm almost there, but I think I'd like to just throw in a few more marks. Loving that yellow in the eyes. So this is the Stabilo yellow, so it's slightly different, it's a little bit stronger, but I'm just going to go with it. It's blending slightly with the green there, which is lovely. I'm good with that. And this is when the mark making gets really interesting, bringing in a bit more yellow. But they're really just almost scribbles, just warming that tone up. This is going on to, the paper is still a little bit wet here, so I can feel that just sliding a little bit rather than making specific marks. So I'm being quite gentle with how I apply that. And the pink, because it's just luscious, so I feel like I need to use a little bit of that as well. Let's have a few strands first of all, just to add some texture to that hair, because it's a little bit flat. I'm going to put some white in on that as well. Define those brows a little more. The tip of the nose. And just a suggestion of apples on those cheeks. I'm being cautious. If it doesn't look right, I can obviously wet that slightly. Just soften that a little bit, but I quite like those lines. Don't want to move them too much, just soften them so they're not quite so harsh. Maybe blend that yellow slightly too. Those to one side so I don't get too carried away. I may need to come back in and tweak them slightly, but I'm going to come in now with some white acrylic for final touches and highlights. I need a little teeny tiny brush. This is like my favourite part, when you get to put some life into the eyes. Well, that's a horrible brush. Let's find a better one. That's a little bit more gentle. Let's just, we're going to white the whites of the eyes just towards the centre, where the eyeball kind of curves outwards, so not all of it. Makes a huge difference, just with a few marks. a little bit just in the middle of the eyelid there, so the light is catching there. Not a flat white, which is why I'm kind of going in and then just lifting a bit off with my fingers. A little more white down here, just evening them out slightly. Refine the outline of those eyes very slightly with a pencil when we're done, but that needs to be something I come back to. Tip of the nose is going to be whiter. And there isn't actually much paint on here, but I'm going to make sure that the nostrils as well, that the light is catching there. And I'm just going to refine the edge of the philtrum here and the upper lip. Tiny touches. You could do this with an acrylic marker, a gel pen would also do it. And these little smudges and things that are kind of occurring around the lips there, they're kind of beautiful in their way. So I'm not going to do too much with them because then it becomes too refined. So it's more a suggestion of the highlights rather than a precise one. A little bit of white on those brow bones, but just lift that out very slightly. And let's have a highlight in those eyes. Less is more. I'm going to leave that alone, see how that looks. She's looking very direct. I maybe could have offset that slightly, but that's fine. She's looking straight at us, and that's what she wants to do, so we're going to stay with that. Put a little more white onto that lower lash line. It's just a little bit harsh there, but it's a broken line. The brush is almost dry. It's not a solid line. And we'll have a little bit of light catching on that lower lip as well, which makes a big old difference there. It just gives that lovely kind of cushion plumpness to the lips there. Let's go back now with my super scrappy brush. That's not it. There it is. Make sure that's really dry and use that white acrylic. Don't want it to be solid. This is why you keep your scrappy brushes, because they give you effects that you don't get with good brushes. And just add another texture into that hair. Makes such a difference. The paint underneath is a little bit wet, so if I'd waited a bit longer, this would be easier. So it's imperfect, but I'm all right with that. And we're here just, we're having fun. This is the whole point of showing up and just working with these live sessions. But it's unplanned. Things sometimes go wrong. They're definitely raw. I think you learn more from the things that don't work quite as you hope they would anyway. Always learning. But the roughness of this brush is perfect for suggesting that texture, because the brush is almost dry and the bristles are kind of a little bit rough and broken up. It's actually made a really big difference to how that's looking. I think I'm going to call her done, because I kind of like that she's a little bit loose and raw, and the only thing I do want to do. Just looking at that, I'm just looking at the balance by looking on the other screen, which I can't see when I'm kind of looking down on it, is that upper lip, I'd really like that to be just a bit darker, because the upper lip tends to be, assuming that the light source is coming from above, the upper lip tends to be in shadow. So we'll just deepen that. I just went back in with my watercolour pencil. Let's just change that. Not to be too wet. Let's just change the look of that upper lip a little bit. My tiny brush again. And this is why it's good to just stop when you say you're going to stop. Because otherwise you start picking up on little details and things which things get too tight and intense, and you lose that rawness, which I really don't want to lose. This was my final touch, as I just said, I just want to refine the edge of those irises a little bit. Being careful not to put like a harsh black line all the way around, particularly because they're not identical, but just those little marks can even them up without really making them symmetrical. They're roughly in a straight line. I feel like the left eye is a little lower, but no one's eyes are straight anyway. It's only in paintings where we try to do that and get that completely accurate. I'm not loving how close together these eyebrows are, so I'm just going to push that back a tiny little bit. They're not quite so darkly meeting in the middle there. That yellow's very harsh, but I'm leaving that because those marks are part of her story. So we will leave her, I think, about there. We're a little dark in the bottom of the neck there too, as I sort of looking now at the whole piece. Just the middle of the neck there, so that it curves away by being darker at the outside edges. And the only thing I want to do is just for the purposes of being kind of tidy and filling the whole page, I'm going to use that scrappy brush. There's a little bit of acrylic on it, there's a little bit of water on it, and I'm just filling that in so that my page isn't kind of blank at the top. And then I feel like the page is done. There's also plenty of room on this to write and journal as well. If I decide to come back, I'd quite happily kind of write maybe in her hair. But I think we'll stop there. Thank you so much to everyone who has joined me and watched. There will be a replay available. Facebook doesn't store them for very long now, but I will make sure that it's up on my YouTube as well. So if you don't catch it here, or you want to watch again, or there are others that you want to see, because there are other videos on my YouTube channel, then you know, make sure you go over there and catch up. And I'm going to just stop now, put that down, stop tweaking and fiddling, and thank you so much for joining me. If there's any questions or comments there, I will get to them shortly. But I hope you've enjoyed this. I look forward to doing it again very soon. I will come back to make it at least once a month, possibly a little more often if time allows. Thanks guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye.